So, folks, we have to talk once more about Dave Rubin, and specifically about this appearance that he had on Stephen A. Smith's show, his straight shooter media operation. I am not a big Stephen A. Smith guy. Like, I don't think that he has very good political instincts at all. I find him to be particularly incoherent. And like, it is very much in line with that incoherence that he would be a Dave Rubin ally, a character in the Davoverse, as it were. Because he has been on Dave Rubin's show in the past. And like, I'm not that interested in him, but I did see a clip going around that was so shocking to me that I actually had to go and find Stephen A. Smith's show to verify that it was real. And I'm going to start playing from, this is around like 22 minutes into this hour-long conversation. We are not going to be watching the entire thing because I would never do that to you. That's a lie. I would absolutely do that to you guys, but I'm not going to do that to you guys today. Because we're busy. We got too much to do. But here is Dave Rubin trying to play defense for Ron DeSantis. Let's take a look here.
I wanted to do it was, we get stuck in this thing where we're always talking about the things that we hate, right? We're always talking about what we're against. It's very easy for me to wake up every morning and write my show and go, the lefties did this and AOC said something crazy and this one did that and the NBA went woke. But I can do that all day long, right? But what I want to do, and what Florida has really afforded me in these last 5 years since I moved here from LA, is there are great things happening in this country. Florida is booming, and it's not an accident. It's because, as Ron DeSantis says, decline is a choice, and we are not choosing it here in Florida.
By the way, Ron DeSantis is just taking the classic being poor is a choice and blowing it up to like a national level thing. Like, yes, national decline, it's a choice, like staying poor. It's the kind of thing where it makes sense to dumb people, where they're like, yes, like we need to balance the national budget just like we would balance our personal checking account. It's not the same thing. Like, a country doesn't operate like your personal finances. And this, like, being poor also just isn't a choice. Like, a lot of people would rather choose to not be poor. In fact, I would say most people. Is this the ghosts of idiots past? I mean, it could be. It could very well be.
We are number one in education. You know the amount of money now coming down here and all the big players from New York who don't want to deal with the tax situation.
Again, we looked into this prior because Dave has made this claim before, and the number one in education is basically number one in, like, higher level education. Like, in terms of, like, universities and, like, the schools you have to pay to attend. When you take into account just their public education system, they are not number one. They are in the middle of the pack at best.
All the people like me who fled Cali, right? You've put some roots down here. It is safe.
I also just want to say, Dave Rubin here is playing defense for Ron DeSantis, in part because Ron DeSantis is, as his last act as governor, trying to push through a piece of legislation to basically eliminate property taxes. And that is so obviously a bad idea because the entire government of Florida essentially operates on those property taxes. There's no real plan for what would replace it. It is messy as hell. And yeah, like, it's genuinely on his way out, he's gonna try and, like, do this absolutely insane thing. And Florida being Florida, they might go with it. Who knows? But I say this because touting being number one in education and then talking about how you're going to eliminate, like, you're gonna eliminate property taxes in the state. Schools get funded by property taxes on the state level. So if you're like really proud of being number one in schools, you're not going to be number one in schools if you get rid of property taxes.
It is clean. We don't have massive drug problem. Businesses are booming. I mean, go to...
Yes. Florida, famous for not having drug problems.
Almost any other state. I was just in New York. You go to the suburbs and look at the strip malls, and basically you'll get 8 closed stores with maybe one kind of 7-Eleven mom and pop shop and something else. You go to our strip malls here in Florida, they are jam-packed. The economy is moving along. There are jobs.
Now, I do want to say this is one of the most fascinating things I have heard. Like, I just haven't ever seen somebody use the strip mall attendance as like an economic indicator. Like that seems really very bizarre to me. Like, well, I went to a strip mall in New York and it was practically empty. And then I went to a strip mall in Florida and it was full of businesses and customers. And it's just like, I guess I'm old enough to remember malls, and like strip malls were not considered cool malls to go to. Like they're not considered like, I don't know, the town hub. Like you in back in the day, I grew up next to the mall or near the mall where Mallrats was filmed. And like malls were actually a place where like people would go and meet each other and hang out. There's an argument to be made there that like the presence of people within the mall was like an economic indicator of some kind. Those days are so fucking dead and gone in the vast majority of cases. You can still find some thriving malls some places, but like strip malls, even during the heyday of malls, were not considered like the cool places to hang out unless you didn't have any other options. So a little bit of a bizarre claim from Dave Rubin, but you know, I'm not here to necessarily talk in depth about those claims, though I'm happy to do so. It's what he's about to get into that I find absolutely wild.
All of the COVID stuff, how well he managed all of that and fought to keep the state open. So I wanted to do a show where we will celebrate that and show people, especially, we're doing this June 11th, but we got our 250th anniversary coming up on July 4th. I want people to feel that there is a way to do America right, and we're doing it in some of these places, but you just got to be willing to see it.
And
but you should ask him that question.
I am going to ask him that question, no question about it. And in the interest of full disclosure, let me not be phony here. I'm a Florida resident my damn self. I migrated, and we ain't lying to the public. You're damn right I did it because of New York and the taxes and everything in New York. I'm sick of it, and no question about it. So I'm with you in that regard. But,
And like, it is interesting to me that Stephen A. Smith here is just like, yeah, absolutely. I an incredibly wealthy person, moved to Florida, because I wanted to escape taxes. But like, you need working class people in Florida, and basically fucking all of them over so you can be a tax haven for the millionaires. That's not going to be successful long term. And Florida's already feeling this effect, like quite hard. I mean, you don't have to look that far. I mean, there's the famous H Bomber guy clip.
So let's say, for the sake of argument, that all of the water levels around the world rise by let's say 5 feet over the next 100 years, say 10 feet by the next 100 years, and it puts all the low-lying areas on the coast underwater, right? Which, let's say all of that happens. You think that people aren't going to just sell their homes and move?
Just one small problem. Sell their houses to who, Ben? Fucking Aquaman!
Now, on that note, because that's basically the entire state of Florida is dealing with that at the moment. Side note, haven't seen the Backrooms movie yet, but it would be absolutely legendary to get H Bomber Guy to do a cameo axing through a wall in the Backrooms. I just think that would be very funny. So that's my pitch to Kane Pixels.
Getting back to the slavery curriculum thing, yeah. I remember one time I was a guest on Jesse Waters' show because Jesse Waters, I think, does a good job. And I was a guest on his show, but I hadn't been on as a guest in quite a while. One of the things he turned me off about, and Ron DeSantis had turned me off about at the same time, I found myself looking at them and saying, "You're not black."
Oh, that's actually a really good example, Brutus Magnuson. You go to a strip mall to pick up food where there aren't any other options. I will say this for strip malls. Strip malls do have some of the best fucking restaurants in the United States.
Jack, I know it's got nothing to do with the topic, but holy shit, Jack, that fit goes so hard with your hair color.
Thank you. I quite like it too. It was unexpected when I tried on the shirt for stream. Vertical Leica, thank you for the $5 dono. Appreciate it.
Why even bring that up? Why even talk about? I said, I don't give a damn what trades you learned or whatever. It was so iniquitous, so insidious.
He's talking about Ron DeSantis basically saying slavery, if from a certain point of view, could be seen as a good thing, because some black people were taught trades by their masters. And that's maybe one of the most heinous things I've ever heard an elected politician in the modern era say. And yeah, Stephen A. Smith rightfully upset about that.
Issue of slavery, why even touch that? That was my attitude. And the same with the curriculums, with the books and everything like that, with President Trump and what he endorsed with executive orders and stuff like this, addressing DEI. My attitude was this, and I said this to Officer Tatum on his podcast. Come to me and tell me that you would tell the Jewish community they ain't gonna have, they're gonna have their access limited to books and other education material about their history, and watch what happens. In other words, if you're gonna do something like that, if you did it to everybody, then I get where you're coming from. But
now, we haven't reached the bottom of this particular barrel yet, but believe it or not, Stephen A. Smith, genuinely, what the fuck? Oh, well, I could understand taking away books about black history if you were also taking away books about Jewish history? You could understand where that's coming from? I mean, I guess it's pretty hard not to understand where that's coming from. Like, just a place of, like, white nationalism. Like I guess it would be pretty hard to not understand the deeply hateful and bigoted place that's some kind of censorship regime along those lines might be coming from. But, like, wow. You don't have to be like, well, I get it, though. You don't have to do that, Stephen A. Smith. Unforced error.
We say things go hard, but we never say things go half chub.
You know, it really makes you think, Sake. These are some deep thoughts. Unfortunately, can't go that deep with a half chub. All right. We are about to go to the bottom of the barrel, though. And the bottom of the barrel is where Dave Rubin takes it. So, as bad as you think this has been so far, buckle in.
When it seemed isolated towards the black community, it was a huge turnoff for me. And that's actually a question I will ask Byron Donald, too, who will
also just like when it seemed like it was only targeting the black community, that's when it turned you off. But, like, if you had been discriminated against and Jewish people had been discriminated against, it wouldn't have been a turnoff. Come on, man. Like, get your head out of your ass.
Also be a guest on this show in the future.
I'm glad to hear that you. I don't know that there was limited access to the black community to certain books, but I would say this, if somebody wrote a book and said, and I'm sure books have actually been written about this, that, the Holocaust actually taught the Jewish people a certain lesson, and that look at how many Holocaust survivors became unbelievably successful business people and all sorts of things in various countries, that that would be true, and it would be worth noting, because the Holocaust was horrible and slavery was horrible. We don't have to play the game of which is worse or anything else. Terrible things have happened to all sorts of people. But out of terrible things, good things do happen. So I think an apples to apples equation would be, is it possible that some slaves learned trades that ultimately were positive? I think the answer to that is yes, and I don't think that makes slavery good. And is it possible that survivors of the Holocaust who had their families annihilated learned something about survival and everything else that they were able to then apply to business and the world and family afterwards? The obvious answer to that is yes, and that doesn't make the Holocaust good. But again, I think
that's the most anti-Semitic thing I've ever seen anybody say. And like that's like I've seen like the neo-Nazi forums and such. Like, this guy's saying that Jewish people who survived the Holocaust honed their business sense. The Holocaust made them better businessmen. That's absolutely fucking insane. Yeah, Jews learned how to be successful CEOs from the Holocaust. And he's doing it, by the way, to like try and bolster the argument that slavery bettered African Americans, right? Which is the argument that Ron DeSantis is making. Ron DeSantis was talking about how slavery wasn't all bad because, you know, some black people learned skills. And if Dave were to take that argument and to restate it, that's what he just did, right? But about the Holocaust. So if we use the original formulation that Dave is trying to defend here, like in Dave's world, the Holocaust is was a bad thing that had some good aspects to it. You know, all of the business acumen learned during one of the most heinous war crimes in history. Like, I'm not surprised that Dave Rubin said something like this, but I guess I am surprised. I'm surprised at just how blatant and stupid this is. Like, this is vile, and like in any kind of just world, this would end his career. It would just end it. Well, like, he even says, like, yeah, people who had their families annihilated, lived through that and used that to become better businessmen. It's just like, what the fuck are you saying? It's a crazy pivot, too, because weren't they talking about not teaching slavery? Yeah, they were talking about, like, tweaks to the curriculum to essentially downplay the importance of slavery in American history and to teach the positive elements of it in school, which then, like, also coincided with taking books about African American history off of bookshelves. Yeah, it is also interesting, right? Like, if you were to take Dave Rubin's argument at face value, African Americans in his world who were oppressed as slaves, slavery just makes you a better tradesman, but the Holocaust makes you a better businessman? It's very weird, and the longer you look at it, the uglier it gets. Like, this point is it's like just a dazzling display of stupidity and hate. It's very weird. I mean, I feel like I should have more to say about this, but it's genuinely, like, I'm baffled that he said this and thought he was making a good point.
It would be worth unpacking that with them a little bit. And I'm sure you know, a few of the scholars who put that curriculum together, by the way, were black. So I get it. I get you are going to have a certain sensitivity to something that might be different than mine. And this is where, what a great place to try to whittle all of that down, right? Imagine if we whittled all of that stuff down to, hey, we're just from slightly different places. We just look slightly different. We want the same things, and we've whittled it down to this much. I'll do that all day long.
Yeah, Dave really looks like he's into whittling.
So would I. Dave Rubin right here with Stephen A. Straight Shooter with Stephen A. Getting back to Ron DeSantis, what's one issue where you...
There's no response to that whatsoever. He just moves right on by it. Oh my god. Imagine someone saying to your face that he thinks that the Holocaust made Jews better business people. And you just have nothing to say to that. And while he's making that argument, he is also trying to argue with that argument that there were good elements to your ancestors being owned as property. Like, I can't understand either of these guys. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. It's not even stupidity, it's beyond that. I mean, I feel like we've gone off the map, you know? What we're talking about here is just the death of empiricism. Yeah, I talk about that. I talk about this a lot, specifically in like the conspiracy theory context, where we talk about how there's like this conspiracy singularity and all the conspiracies kind of wrap around it and mix together as they get closer to the event horizon, which of course is the JQ, the Jewish question. That's at the center of the conspiracy singularity, because all conspiracy theories circle back down to that. It is like the primeval conspiracy that for thousands of, like, the last couple thousand years has just been embedded into Western culture as it is, you know? I just cannot fathom sitting there and not having anything to say about it. When we're talking about anti-empiricism as like a core component of fascism, I have a video on my channel from years ago covering the essay by Umberto Eco, Fascism, which is essentially Umberto Eco trying to nail down what exactly is fascism in context, in practice, using his experience living under fascism to kind of build a template. And he comes up with 14 points. And in the essay, he goes over them. It's a relatively short one. You can read it very easily in one sitting. One of the key components is this anti-empiricist one, which is the rejection of reality, the rejection of facts. And this is why during Trump 1, it was a really big deal when suddenly Donald Trump started talking about alternative facts and the lying press and all of that. Because what that does is it creates the intellectual framework to undermine reality. Because once you've undermined reality, at least in a core component of your base, you can just lead them anywhere you want, including right into a wood chipper. You know? It's very much a cult building technique as well. And when we're talking about anti-empiricism, that's what this is. Like Ron DeSantis being able to stand up in front of an entire state as an elected representative and talk about how, well, there were actually some really redeeming qualities to slavery. Well, actually, there were, and then it leads to Dave Rubin being like, well,
He even had a second follow-up to Fascism. It's called No You.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. But it also is what leads Dave Rubin to sit there and be like, well, the Holocaust also had some silver linings. Some really great businessmen were forged in the fires. That was poor choice of words. Some great businessmen were really like, there's no good way to, I can't really make that. I'm trying to say it in like a more acceptable way, but like it's genuinely one of the most heinous things that I've ever heard. I want to be clear. That was not an intentional joke on my part. I feel really, really bad. I feel really, really bad about that. But like,
Dave
God damn.
But do you realize that in the antebellum South, the black unemployment rate was 0%? Follow my show for more big ideas.
Dave Rubin is just, I don't know, like the embracing of just nothing matters, nothing is real, this nihilist death cult mentality of fascism, it is embodied by Dave Rubin. Because Dave Rubin doesn't care about anything. A man who will sit there and say with a straight face that the Holocaust made good businessmen is someone who doesn't believe anything, is not connected to reality by anything, and like is fundamentally like to call back to like my religious upbringing, fundamentally damned. There's no coming back from this. This is like a point of no return.
It's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger taken to the nth degree, but that ideology never made sense to me. Survival doesn't necessarily mean you're stronger.
No, it's literally a fallacy. It's survivorship bias. Like, if you came back from being a fighter, like a bomber pilot in World War II, and you're just like, yeah, it's because I'm the best. All those other chumps were shot down because they're the worst. Like, you're just biased. You just got insanely lucky, and you're biased by that experience. And it's just, this is the kind of shit I used to curse at my racist ass stepfather for. The difference is he doesn't have a platform. Rubin does. Yeah, Rubin has a platform of millions. Dave Rubin has 3.2 million subscribers on YouTube. I'm just wondering if there are anyone in the comments on this. Dave, you rocked it. Good job, Rubin. Very good answers. Oh my god. Here's a comment trying to engage with the topic. Stephen A. Smith on bringing up slavery. The problem here is that the left continues to use this reality as a weapon to stay in the victimhood class. No one is denying it existed. However, if you never got beyond the ideological stamp of slavery as a demographic, you will never heal and progress from it. Look at the continual gaslighting of the Democratic Party still using it today, framed as equality or white supremacy. It is just slavery issue 2.0. Can we move on, please? America has Supreme Court justices, governors, senators, congresspeople, CEOs who are all black. Heck, America has a black president, so stop with the victimhood rhetoric. This is literally the fucking meme about we need more lesbian, gay drone pilots. Like, well, how could there be misogyny and bigotry towards LGBTQ people? We have lesbian drone pilots. Like, what are you talking about? The existence of people in positions of power does not preclude the existence of systemic oppression. When we're talking about, I'm going to engage with this in an honest capacity here, okay? The problem here is the left continues to use this reality as a weapon to stay in the victimhood class. Number one, it's very interesting here that this commenter says the left continues to do this, when then goes on to say, as a demographic, you will never heal and progress from it. So it's very clear he's not talking about the left. He's talking about a very specific kind of left. God. Also, Sake Tanuki, sorry, the dono alert got eaten. Dave Rubin must be coping with the fact that Ben Shapiro did to him what everyone else does to Ben Shapiro. Yeah. Unironically. Dave is perpetually coping. Kind of hard to not be a victim when you're actively being victimized. Well, that's the thing, right? Systemic oppression has many different forms. For example, you have redlining, which forced African Americans into very specific neighborhoods, denied African Americans being able to live in certain neighborhoods. Hell, in Minnesota, there are still like neighborhood homeowner associations that have clauses not to sell to people of color. Like, they aren't enforced anymore by and large, but like those still exist, and some communities do still enforce them. They just do it in roundabout fashions. When we start talking about like other elements of this, stop and frisk in New York, broken windows policing. You've also got the entire element of, different demographics that commit crimes, like at the same rate, disproportionately, African Americans are more likely to be both arrested and charged, and their sentences are much longer, right? Like this, you also have just like the element of, because of the economic inequality, that is created by multiple centuries of not being able to pass on generational wealth, you then have African American families that are disproportionately poor. In turn, that leads to a definitive way in our society to discriminate on the basis of wealth in order to discriminate on the basis of race. Right? Which is how, like, credit scores were used for a long time. And to this day as well. We have, like, this set of problems. And it's not that no one can succeed. It's that it makes it statistically harder to succeed. It's not imagined. It's not an imagined problem. Like, exactly, Gila Monster. Like, we just got rid of the Voting Rights Act. And the very first thing that all these southern states do is go to disenfranchise African American voters. The entire push for voter ID laws following Barack Obama's election in 2008 was because African Americans voted in record numbers in 2008, and that was recognized as a threat to a variety of different industries, and the lobbyists for those industries then tried to push forward voter ID laws. And guess what? Republicans are still heavily pushing voter ID laws to this day because statistically it disenfranchises African Americans. Like, this is not an imagined past. It is a real present. And this is what I was talking about as well when it comes to kind of rejecting empiricism. When you reject empiricism, all you are left with is vibes-based politics. And that's what commenters on Dave Rubin's videos are going on. It's just vibes. The continual gaslighting of the Democratic Party, still using it today, framed as equality or white supremacy, is just the slavery 2.0 issue. Can we move on, please? It's like, we can't move on. We can't move on because for all of the same reasons that was it Lee Atwater? Lee Atwater explains when it comes to Nixon's strategy. Like, I think a lot of Republicans don't realize that they have been trapped for the last 50 years in a political system that has been targeting them specifically. Right? A lot of Republicans just don't get this. And Lee Atwater explains this. And I am not going to play the clip because it is not appropriate, right? But I can read it, right? And this is how it goes. Lee Atwater was the campaign consultant for Ronald Reagan, and I believe also worked for Nixon. And he lays out the Republican, what became known as the Southern strategy of the Republican Party. I mean, it's pretty blunt. And it goes like this. You start out in 1954 by saying N-word, N-word, N-word. By 1968, you can't say N-word. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract. Now you're talking about cutting taxes, and all these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and a byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. We want to cut this is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than N-word, N-word. And that's Lee Atwater's Southern strategy in a nutshell. It is the idea that you just take the racist thing and make it more abstract. Instead of talking about, how black people are a drain on society, which was a common Republican talking point, you shift over to talking about welfare queens, right? You start talking about how, oh, no, I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about welfare queens, right? Like, that's... It abstracts it. You take another step back and another step back until suddenly you have a situation where, and I'm sure some of you remember, in like the 90s and early aughts, people would describe themselves as socially liberal but fiscally conservative. And that was a way to acceptably be racist, right? Because instead of saying, "Oh, yeah, I think that black people are draining our system and leeching off of the social safety net," instead you're saying, "Oh, no, 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 I think we need to root out fraud, waste, and abuse." And if suddenly you're making a connection there between that talking point and what is happening right now with the Trump administration, you basically have the Lee Atwater strategy on steroids. Because Lee Atwater, while he's talking about levels of abstraction, is still talking about, like, you know, abstractions that are based in some way on in reality. And what I mean by that is Lee Atwater obviously pushing racism. The racism isn't like a reflection of, you know, what is good policy, obviously. But when he's pushing this, it is still tethered to like the same kind of stats and figures as like the rest of society. Donald Trump is doing all of this while completely untethered from reality. Just completely gone. And so the dog whistles are becoming less abstract because the abstraction stops making any sense when you're unmoored from reality. Like you're kind of drifting along away from the reality. So the dog whistles need to become more concrete. The racism needs to become more specific. I think that's what we're seeing with Dave. I think that's what we're seeing with Dave Rubin. I think that's what we're seeing here in this conversation between Stephen A. Smith and Dave Rubin. And I hope that this demonstrates for you how scary this anti-empiricist phenomena is. It's what allows people to become essentially religious fanatics, but for political causes. You know, it's what creates the violent urge within political supporters. And because if you live in a reality, right? If you live in a reality where you absolutely, positively, truly believe that Democrats, by supporting, you know, a woman's right to choose, are facilitating millions upon millions of murders every year, an ongoing, like, atrocity against all of humanity. If you seriously live in a world where you believe that, you seriously live in a world where you're like then you're in a world and a mindset where you can justify anything to your political enemies. You can justify any kind of retribution. You can go down very dark paths. And this is exactly what we've seen, by the way, when it comes to folks radicalized to be neo-Nazi shooters. Like
Are you
the
saying their
boys who
words are
attacked
so
that mosque.
devoid of coherent points they need to be more racist in order to make their point?
Yes. Because, like, by becoming unmoored from reality, like, it basically frees them, in a sense, to be racist like that. It's kind of like if you took to an extreme what a lot of people were saying after Donald Trump was elected, about like, well, now you can say the R slur at work and whatever. Like, it's kind of like a way more amplified version of that. So it is terrifying to see. And again, just one of the worst things I think I've ever heard somebody say about the Holocaust. Congrats, Dave. Some truly high-level ideas. A race to the bottom. It's true. Fucking Dave. I hope that all made sense. I was trying to put together some fairly abstract ideas I've been tossing around my brain today. And I know that maybe that wasn't like the most polished presentation of my ideas that I've done. But I hope it made sense. And folks, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment if you got anything out of this. Let me know what you think. I'm truly without words for what Dave said there and how Stephen A. Smith reacted to it. Really emblematic of why I do not care for Stephen A. Smith. Folks, get organized. Join your local Dems. Join your local DSA. We can help you do that. Join our Discord, reach out to GamerG for help with the essay, reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. And also, folks, consider joining Progressive Victory. There's a link down in the description. They'll help plug you into different campaigns across the country. Last but not least, check out ImogeneOlivia.com, gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. And it's cool, it's sexy, comfortable, non-tucking lingerie.
The conspiracy black hole part is really good, but if you could work on TGE's second half of that argument, it'd appreciate a dedicated video essay.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if we get a dedicated video essay anytime soon. Someone should make a D&D stat block for Imogene Olivia. True. Go check it out. Link down in the description. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and switching streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, daily, plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's